listening to you tell your story, in the beginning, it seems like you were in the witness protection program. Basically, when they told you, let's do, take you away, let's do certain things.
Right.
The questions they're asking you, this man is out there, he's very dangerous, and they're asking you, do you want to go into the witness protection program? They knew that this guy was dangerous. And it's almost like, I know people, some people will say no, but you have children to think about. And the time when the trail was cold and the PI said that you thought he was out of the country, were the kids out of the country? Did you
They
find out
were they were in Antigua.
in Antigua?
Yeah,
Okay, wow.
because
So you knew it and you felt it.
I
So,
didn't know that until after I got them back.
right. No, I mean, you felt that they were out of the country. That's
My
what I'm saying.
cousin told me that they were out of the country. He tried to find them and they weren't here. He's a private investigator. He couldn't find them.
So now the life that you led and the person you were married to,
Hmm.
that's PTSD going on right there,
Correct.
okay?
Yes.
Because it's almost like you were fighting another war, you were
Right.
fighting a war. You're trying to remain calm because you don't want to lose it. You want to get the kids. And I commend you because I'm telling you, I couldn't do that. What I mean, couldn't do this is you didn't want your children to break down. You wanted
Right.
to be strong in front of them. You go in the bathroom, you get a pillow, you turn, because we've all done something similar. It's just, how do you still have this positive? You're a beautiful woman because, baby, when I say black don't crack, black don't crack. Okay. How
Correct.
did you pull yourself out of that? Did you go through therapy? I know you had to be strong for your kids, but Miss Muhammad, I'm floored with admiration on how strong you are in what you did to get to where you are. I'm just puzzled. I have so many questions rambling in my head, and I'm just like floored right now. How did you get from there to here?
Only by the grace, because I looked in scripture at who was going through or had gone through the same thing I was experiencing. And I found Hagar and I found Jacob because Jacob,
Hmm.
Joseph was missing. And although the brothers knew where he was, there were people that knew where my children were and didn't tell me. They knew where they were. They did not tell me. And so I studied him. I studied how his faith in God was so strong. And regardless of what his other sons told him, he did not believe them. He knew in his heart that Joseph was alive. He knew in his heart that he was going to see him again. He knew that. And in the Quran, it says that sons were questioning their father to why he's always yearning and crying over Joseph. And he said, I complain only to Allah. And that's when I stopped talking to other people. And I began to just dive into my faith and dive into knowing. I knew one day I would get my children back. I didn't know when. I didn't know where I would be, but I knew I would get them back. And anybody that spoke against that, who brought negativity to me, who tried to make me doubt that I would ever see them, eliminated from my life. I could not have naysayers. I couldn't have anybody speaking death over me. If you wasn't pouring life into me, as far as I was concerned, you were speaking death over me. You were speaking defeat over my life, and I could not have that. I don't care if it was family and friends. You had to go. Could not have that in my life. I couldn't.
Okay, so with your kids, you were married, that was their father. How did
Right.
they transition through? Because were they made fun of in school? What did you like? What was their mental state going through that? Because can you imagine? They were babies. They knew what was going on. Either they were being told or they saw it on television. How did they maneuver through this? Because then you have the stigma, then you have the guilt. So how did you help them through that?
It was difficult to get counseling because it was a high profile case.
Mhm.
Everybody wanted to be on TV. We was referred to one counselor. Unfortunately, once he knew who we were, he told my son to contact Lee Malvo to find out how he felt about the case so that he could help him to write a book. So I told him that, you know what? You're lucky I'm not a cursing woman because we're not coming back. My son was crying and say, "Oh, mommy, I'm sorry. I'm sorry." I said, "No, you don't have nothing to be sorry about. It's not. That wasn't you. That was him." So I went to the library. I got a book on counseling, and I learned how to counsel me and my children myself. I told them that I am your best resource for your dad. I will tell you the good, the bad, and the indifferent, even if it makes me look bad, because we got to get through this, and we're going to get through this with the truth. Scripture says that the truth shall make you free. It never said it wouldn't hurt.
Mhm.
Go through some painful stuff, but as long as we stick together and we're truthful with each other, then we can make it through this.
Did the children want to see him while he was incarcerated?
No, because I told them they wasn't going to. We are not taking that route. And because he wanted to kill me, I was the one that would have to take them. I wasn't, no, ma'am,
Right,
wasn't,
right.
no, we're not doing that one. And so they wanted to watch home videos. So, and they wanted me to narrate. So we watched home videos and I narrated. What was daddy doing? What was daddy thinking? How did y'all do this? How did y'all do that? I had to push all of my stuff aside in order
Mhm.
to give my children what they needed. And that is
Closure.
all
Mhm.
about. So yes,
What I love about you is, and I wish people would understand because you realize, and I guess everyone, it's a process for
it's
everyone.
a process.
What I love that you did was you realized, and I would like a lot of victims, and at the point when they feel like they're a victim, when your abuser is feeling that way about you and they don't care about you, and again, it's a process. You
Mhm.
have to kind of shut down.
Right.
Not show any emotions. And like you said, when he said that to you, he was no longer the husband, the ex-husband. He was a stranger. Okay, you went from there to now being a global keynote speaker, an international expert speaker for the US State Department. How did you go from there? Because you were in a valley, you were in a low valley.
Yes,
Then
I
your
was.
valley started to peak. Listening to your story, and I can see your emotions where it's just like, no, this is just something that happened, but I'm on a new,
Exactly.
I see it. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on over there? But you know what? You have to do what you have to do in order to survive. You don't want to stay back there.
Correct.
You're here, you're alive, your children are
Hmm.
alive. So, how did you get to be this phenom, this sought after speaker? How did you get to be Wonder Woman and Superwoman? How did you get there? Honey, let me tell you, you used your superpower. You hear me? You used your superpower because you're a mom, and being a mom is a superpower.
That's true. Well, before I started this week, I asked my children if it was okay for me to talk about their dad because there are women that are contacting me for help. And I need to share our story if that's okay with you. They say, Mom, as long as you tell the truth, then we don't have a problem with it. And so that's when I began to not only share my story, but to educate myself more about what domestic abuse and violence is. And found out that 80% of victims do not have physical scars to prove that they are victims, and 20% do. Well, I fit into that 80% because he didn't hit me. However, because we are visual people, if I don't see your pain, then your pain does not exist. So if you split us down the middle and turn us inside out, you'll see all the scars that you need to see. However, going up to 75% of victims who try to leave an abusive relationship are either hurt or killed. I began to reach out to speak because nobody would hire me. They were afraid to be around me for fear that they would get shot, even though he was in prison. That's how they felt. And so, as I Googled domestic violence conferences and I sent out emails and said who I am to share my story, a couple of people reached back and they said, "We would love you to come and share your story. What's your price?" I had not even gotten to that point. I gave them a price and they said, okay. And that's how I became a speaker. And so I've been speaking ever since. I've written 6 books and 3 anthologies. So that's where I am.
Because of what's going on in the world today regarding not just the pandemic, but the domestic abuse that's going on in the households,
It's
what people need to understand, and for those, because I was one of those women, and I'm going to be transparent, like, why'd you leave? Because I do believe, for me, I believe emotional is worse than physical.
Correct.
Because physical, you can get healed, but that emotional, it's invisible, number one. And number two, sometimes if you don't get the right help or get back into the right mindset, it can mess you up for the rest of your life, right?
Correct.
And if
Right.
you have children. So I was one of those women. I'm like, what you mean you stayed? Why don't you leave? What you come on? I was one of those women.
Mm.
So I decided, look, Jackie, if you're gonna do a show called The Women Are Worthy Show, number one, you need to be more compassionate. Number
Okay.
two, you need to do some homework on this. Okay.
Mhm.
Number three, got the statistics. So what I found was when you're being, and I saw this movie with Jennifer Lopez that was called Enough.
Enough. Right.
That really helped me to see, and I saw the burning bed and all that, but watching Enough was the movie, the pivotal moment for me. And that's when I did more research. I'm like, Jackie, do you know how you sound asking these women when they're telling you they're being abused, and you're saying, well, girl, why don't you leave? First of all, Jackie, say if the shoe was on the other foot, you would have said, you know what? Nice doing an interview with you. Goodbye.
Mm.
Because what you're doing is you're slapping them in the face. I'm gonna tell you, Sister Muhammad, this is exactly what I was saying to myself. So I educated myself, and that's when I found out that you have to go through so much before you leave. You have to prepare. Then, if you have children, then you should have a preparation bag. So when you're ready to make that escape, this is what you need to do. You can't just walk out and leave. Most family members won't accept you, or they'll take you in. Then they'll tell the abuser where you are.
Correct.
He'll come and find out, because most of the abusers are very charismatic. The
Correct.
family
Love
loves. I told you I did my research. So I saw this lady's look when I said that when I was interviewing her. And if looks could kill, and I could see that she composed herself. And then she's like, well, because I couldn't. And then after the show, I said, what happened? She's like, you'll never understand because you've never gone through it. So
Right.
that was a pivotal moment for me to watch Enough, because I never wanted to see abuse movies or domestic violence movies. I said, this
Mhm.
is not happening to me. I don't need to see it. Let me move on over. And you can never say it's never going to happen, because it just takes one thing. You never know people's mind or psyche. So I was doing a service to women who would, with their significant others, or even men being abused. I
Mhm.
was doing people a disservice by interviewing people, because what I was doing is, in a way, like blaming them.
So
Like,
you
oh,
were blaming. That's
yes,
victim blame. Yes.
that's what I was doing. Like, you mean you staying there because you like it? I didn't say it like that, but that's what it seemed and appeared.
Right.
So I said, Jackie, you have to go do some research, read some books, go to shelters, and do that. So
But let me ask
that's
you
what I
this.
feel. Yes,
Let me ask
ma'am.
you this. If I may
Mhm.
ask you a question.
Look, this is your show. You can ask me anything. Go ahead.
Just as easily as you asked her, why did she stay? Do you think it would be easy for you to ask the abuser, why does he abuse?
Yes, because I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I had a show where I had a man who was abusing his significant other.
Okay.
And I wanted to know, why would you do that? And then, we found out it was about, growing up. That's what he saw his father doing. I wasn't sympathetic to him. I just wanted to know what was in the abuser's mind. He was like 350, 6'4". She was like 5'2". And you're physically stronger than her. Because one thing, Sister Muhammad, you need to know, it's not just women or men. I'm going to ask the same question, either or. And that helped me to understand, because I'm having all these women on the show. Guys prefer to do the radio portion of my show, because they don't want to show their face, because they would appear weak if they were talking about their wives or girlfriends were beating on them. Because in today's society, as you know, Sister Muhammad, when a man says, oh, she's beating on me, it's like a joke.
Correct.
It's not a
Correct.
joke.
Right.
So I did ask, a subject, one of my guests, and he said, because this is what he saw his father doing, he knew he shouldn't do it. He had rage. He was coming up with everything,
Excuses.
every excuse
Excuses.
without saying.
Because abuse is a choice. There
Mhm.
are many men and women who grew up in abusive homes and they chose not to abuse. When my children was going through this, I told them one excuse you will not have, and that is to tell me or anybody else that you cannot exist or make it in this world because your dad is the DC sniper. That is not going to happen. That's a choice. All abusers make a choice to victimize, brutalize, mutilate, emotionally abuse, and kill their victims as a choice. John was not on any medication. He was not on drugs. He didn't drink. He was a bodybuilder. He made a choice to get a computer, map out innocent people, target me. This is how he found me. He went to a father's rights group in Seattle, told them I kidnapped the children. They did not research his story. They did a skip trace on me, found me in the DC area, and told him. He went to his best friend and said, I found Mildred. She's in the DC area. I'm going to go get her. That best friend said, you're not going to hurt her, are you? He walked away. That best friend, in the midst of those shootings, called the FBI and said, I don't know anything about your case, but you may want to look at John Allen Muhammad. His ex wife is in the area and he may be there to hurt her. That's when the investigation changed. That's when they found me. That's when they put us in protective custody. Once they caught John, they had nothing to hold him on. His fingerprints wasn't on the gun. He no DNA was anywhere. They had to release him within 48 hours. The sheriff department, the sheriff in Maryland at that time went to find something legal to
To
hold him
hold
on. They found my little old restraining order that the Tacoma Police Department did not put in the NCIC, National Crime Information Center. Had that restraining order been in the NCIC, the first time they stopped him doing all those shootings, they would have caught him. So he had to put that restraining order in the NCIC and they held him to get to build a case against him on the back of violating a restraining order.